You've been yearning for a great PC gaming experience, but the price of admission is too much to bear? Well, join me, and I'll show you how to build a great system on the cheap. My name is Jim. Thank you for joining me on the inaugural episode of the PC Peasant. Today I'm going to show you how to build a system using all new parts, targeting 1080p gaming for under $400. I'm also going to go over some great bang for the buck peripherals that will only set you back a total system cost of around $500. Let me quickly overview the parts I've selected for this build and go over the prices I paid. This build was basically assembled over a 2-month span using mostly Newegg but some other online sources to try and find the best deals. Now, if you're building a PC for the first time and you're trying to get it as cheaply as possible, a lot of times it's a lot of patience and daily checking different websites. PC Part Picker is a good place to try and find the cheapest on a specific part. And then Newegg seems to have sales on specific components at different times. So they never really want you to put a system together all at one time using a bunch of their great deals. So you pretty much just kind of have to stalk those websites constantly. Starting with the CPU, the AMD Athlon 200GE is a fantastic budget CPU. I paid $50.79 from PC Parts Outlet for a 2-core, 4-threaded CPU, which on some motherboards and BIOS revisions can be overclocked. As it is, even at stock, it's equivalent to about an i5-2400, which will get you by with most of today's games and gives you a great platform in order to upgrade. For the motherboard, I selected the Gigabyte AB350M. It's a micro ATX motherboard. I was able to get this at Newegg for $49.99. I really wanted to go with an AB350 board just because of overclocking support, and there's a possibility I'll be able to overclock the Athlon with this board. You could save yourself maybe $5 to $10 if you went with an A320 board, but they are more basic and there's no overclocking support. For the RAM, I've selected some Geil Golden Emperor International LTD RAM. Now this is an 8GB stick, it has 2 sticks of 4 gigabytes. It is just a 2400 megahertz kit. Usually with Ryzen you want to go with the fastest RAM that you could possibly afford. I was able to get this set for $45.99 from Newegg, and it is just a 2400 megahertz kit, but we'll see if we can overclock it and tighten the timings and see what we can get out of it. The graphics card is actually a pretty interesting selection. It's a Sapphire card, and it's actually an RX 470. Now, it was a brand new card, but if you notice, there's only a single video output, and it's DVI. This was actually a card that Sapphire marketed as a mining card. I stumbled upon this again on Newegg. I paid $99.99 for this brand new card, and we'll see if we can't repurpose some of these mining cards for gaming. It does have at least one video output, so it should work. For storage, this day and age, it is really hard for me to live without at least a solid-state boot drive. Typically, if you try and get the cheapest $20 120 gigabyte solid-state drive and pair that with, say, maybe a 1 terabyte Western Digital Blue or Seagate Barracuda drive, you're still looking in about the $65 range for that combo. I was able to get this 500 gigabyte SSD. It's a Patriot Burst. It's not the fastest or the best or anything like that, but it is going to be a pretty quick drive. It's a 480 gigabyte drive, and I paid $52.99 for this. I feel like this is a pretty good sweet spot of quick but also copious amounts of storage. For the power supply, I picked up this EVGA 500BR. It is a 500 watt 80 plus bronze rated power supply, non-modular, but I was also able to get this on Newegg early in December it was $19.99. I think that is a bargain. EVGA has decent power supplies that I wouldn't be afraid of putting in any system, and they usually go on deep discounts. For the case, I picked up this Roseville FBM X2 case. Roseville is a house brand for Newegg, so of course that's where I purchased it. I've actually never used this case before, but it looked like a pretty interesting, inexpensive case to use. Right now it seems like they're over $30 plus shipping, but I was able to purchase this at some point in January. It was $19.99 with free shipping. For fans, I was able to pick up, actually I picked up a 4-pack of these Cooler Master 120mm fans. The 4-pack was on sale for $8.99. Now obviously there's no LEDs, there's nothing fancy about these fans. For a budget build, we're not going for looks, we're only going for performance. Here's the total parts cost for the tower. We came in just a shade under the $350 mark for an all-new system. That's pretty awesome. Now let's see how this beautiful budget beast looks assembled. Now that we have a working computer, let's talk about the peripherals we need to actually use the darn thing. Let's start with the keyboard. I purchased this Red Dragon K551 Vara off eBay for $38.75 with free shipping. This keyboard features metal construction, Outimo blue key switches, and double shot injected keycaps. Overall, for a keyboard under $40 shipped, it's a very quality piece. They do also make this keyboard non-lit and RGB versions. And they make a K552, which is a 10 keyless version of this keyboard, which is about $10 cheaper. Personally, it's worth the $10. I do use the numpad quite a bit, so I just had to have it. For the mouse, I bought this open box return Roseville RGM 400 from Newegg for $8.99 shipped. It features an Avago 3050 optical sensor, can cycle 500 to 4000 DPI on the fly, and is RGB-ish. It just automatically cycles through 7 colors. This mouse does have some good weight to it, and it feels really good in the hand, but it's kind of cheaper materials, and the front and back buttons feel really cheap to press. But it does have a braided cable, so overall it's decent, especially for less than $10. For a headset, I went with the Roseville Nebula GX30, which I purchased open box off Newegg for $21.99 shipped. These might be the biggest diamond in the rough cheap peripheral I've ever purchased. They're over-the-ear wired headphones. They're RGB-ish, again, on the ear pads. They just kind of cycle through colors automatically. It's metal frame construction. It includes a Y cable if you want to use on your console or phone. And the audio quality on these for a cheap headset is just unbelievable. It also has a detachable microphone that sounds very good as well. I can't believe it. If you're in the market for a budget headset, buy these. Up next is a totally optional purchase, and I did not include it in the total cost. But if you prefer external speakers to a headset or would like to have external speakers and a headset, this is not a bad deal. They are Logitech Z213s. I purchased at Newegg for $20.99. You get 2 satellite speakers and a 4-inch subwoofer, and it also includes a wired control deck which has volume controls and headphone output on it. These certainly punch above their sound grade, but they don't have as much bass as a more premium setup. and you do get some distortion as you approach full volume. Overall, they do get the job done very well, just don't expect to use them for a raging dance party. For a display, I bought this refurbished Acer KG241Q 24-inch monitor off Newegg for $99.99 shipped. This is a 1080p, 75Hz, FreeSync compatible TN panel. It has a 1 millisecond response time, and overall is a pretty decent looking monitor. It's going to be perfect for gaming. Cons to this are it does have a very basic base. It has only a tilt adjustment, but it is VESA compatible, so you could use your own stand or a different base altogether. And it does have 2 HDMI ports and 1 VGA port. Overall, this was a very easy system to put together. My only gripe with the motherboard is that it only has a single system fan header, so I did end up having to add a Molex splitter for the 2 intake fans on the case. The case itself is really nice for the price. The front panel looks nice, but it is definitely cheap plastic. It's a little bit thinner metal frame construction, but the layout is great. There's plenty of room for cable management, bottom-mounted power supply, and a 120mm fan that comes with the case for an exhaust. There's also a spot for an additional 2 120mm fans in the top of the case, and it does have a dust filter. I think this Roswell case is going to be my new go-to micro ATX case on the lower end. I did have to add 2 things to the total cost of this build, one being a Molex to fan adapter, thanks to the lack of fan headers on this motherboard, the other being a DVI to HDMI cable, as the monitor only came with a single VGA cable. Still, the total cost only comes out to be $523.11. Now let's see how this thing performs. First, let's look at some synthetic benchmarks before attempting to gain free performance by overclocking. This little 2-core 3.2 GHz Dazzler managed a Cinebench R15 score of 352. Now let's take a look at 3D Mark Firestrike, where this system received a total score of 8,141, with a graphics score of 12,748, a physics score of 5,499, and a combined score of 2,724. Not too bad. In 3D Mark Time Spy, it managed a total score of 3,136. This features a graphics score of 3,620 and a CPU score of 1,785. Now let's see how some overclocks change things up. Updating to the latest BIOS revision did unlock the Athlon. This is BIOS revision F24. I started by disabling Core Performance Boost, AMD Cool and Quiet, SVM mode, and C-State controls. Then I added a small bump of 0.036 volts to the voltage offset, which puts me at 1.32 volts V-core under full load. This allows me to run the CPU at 3.8 GHz on all cores very reliably. 3.9 GHz was achievable, but it required going to extreme levels on the V-core, and it's just not worth the extra 100 MHz. 4 GHz on this chip was just a pipe dream. No way it was going to do it. I was able to bump this cheap RAM from 2400 MHz to the max speed the Athlon will handle of 2666 MHz, and tighten the main timings from 16, 16, 16, 36 down to 15, 15, 15, 35. And this was without touching SoC or DRAM voltage. I think I could probably push this memory a little faster with a different CPU, but this is about as low as the timings will go for stable 24/7 usage. The mining GPU really made this build interesting. On one hand, having only the DVI out means that FreeSync will not work on this card. Furthermore, I was surprised to find that I also cannot take advantage of my 75Hz monitor, as this GPU will not allow me to push a refresh rate beyond 60 Hz. I confirmed this by installing a standard RX 570 I had on hand, which did allow me to overclock the display to 100 Hz. There are some positives though, like the fact that this card overclocks like a beast. I managed to overclock the max frequency by 22% for an increase of 264 MHz. The memory also maxed out to 2100 MHz, up from 1750. This was achieved with a power limit of plus 36%. I didn't even have to change the fan profile, as I only saw max temps of 78 degrees C while stress testing. Now let's check out the overclock results of those synthetic benchmarks. Starting with Cinebench R15, we jumped from 352 points all the way up to 424. That scores this chip in the neighborhood of a 6th or 7th gen i3 and 2nd and 3rd gen i5s. With 3D Mark Firestrike, we damn near made the 10,000 club with a total score of 9,867. This features a graphics score of 15,248, a physics score of 6,461, and a combined score of 3,456. Pretty meaty gains all around. On Time Spy, we gained 408 points over our original score with the Overclock to give us a total of 3,745. This features a graphics score of 4,331 and a CPU score of 2,121.
Not too shabby!
Synthetic benchmarks certainly give you a gauge on performance, but let's take a look at how this little engine that could runs games. Before we start, I wanted to mention I do have VSync enabled on almost every game. The main reason is I personally cannot stand to see screen tearing while playing. Since I'm unable to overclock the monitor beyond 60 Hz with this GPU, running above 60 FPS will be wasted frames anyways. I feel it's more important to look at the average and low frame rate just to judge how well a game will run in a real-world scenario. With these settings for Apex Legends, the game made a max frame rate of 62, an average frame rate of 60, and a low of 45. Overall, this was an extremely enjoyable experience with no obvious frame stuttering, even during heavy firefights.
Your manners, cross your T's and dot your eyelids. Seal the deal was that you wanted this for real. So change your mind, you're way out of line. I'm sorry, you're wasting your time. Bang, bang, do you hear that sound? Bang, bang, 'cause it's coming round. Bang, bang, I'll see your ass at high noon.
CSGO was the only game I didn't have to use VSync and managed a max frame rate of 297, an average frame rate of 163, and a minimum of 114 with these settings.
That's funny, how the hell you think you made it in this song? Come on, you really thought you were all that? Hell no! You need to go back to where you came from, which is probably the pound of message you left hanging, and your brother so foul. So go and leave, I'm begging you please, 'cause hey, you ain't hanging with me. Bang, bang, do you hear that sound? Bang, bang, 'cause it's coming round. Bang, bang, I'll see your ass at high noon. I said bang, bang, do you hear that sound? Bang, bang, we don't fuck around. Bang, bang, I'll see your ass at high noon. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, come on. And I know you think you burned me.
For Doom, using Vulkan and these settings netted a perfect, buttery smooth experience.
Play nice now? Hell no! 'Cause if I am dead to you, that's fine, that means I'm the necromancer. Your asbestos walls won't save you from the fire or the cancer. It's such a disgrace, you know I'm tough to replace. But hey, you've been erased. Now, you lay in your wait. You came to set ablaze a blaze of glory. Hey, I'm afraid that you're too late.
Far Cry 5 is the first game where I saw a substantial hit on the minimum frame rate with these higher settings I used. Even so, I didn't notice it while playing and decided to stick with the better visuals.
One must never place a loaded rifle on the stage if it isn't going to go off. It's wrong to make promises you don't mean to keep.
Hey, whether we're bringing the rock, bringing the form, bringing the noise, it doesn't matter because you're rocking with the boys. The original trumpet bombs, bringing it on and hitting you so hard that you're gonna cry for your mom. And then we fix it cause we're getting our tropical administering the medicine. You know it ain't topical scene. It penetrates deep down to your soul. It's out of control, and that's the beauty of rock and roll. Come on. Misery creeps through me when I hear the music that you're playing for me. Today, yeah. Hey, and we ain't trying to say we from LA. We from Toledo, motherfuckers, and it's been that way. We're proud of our roots, don't run from the truth. It's silly what someone say when they step in a sound booth. And we ain't talking about shots and motherfucking party rock. Put my damn stomach in knots. I LMFAO with the shit you call music. If you've been giving a mic, please don't abuse it. What? Oh, come on. Misery creeps through me when I hear the music that you're playing for me. Today, yeah. Sympathy sneaks through me when I hear the lyrics that you later to be. Today, yeah. But you didn't have to cut me. But I did because your music isn't.
Fortnite played very well even on all epic settings. The only time I might have noticed a dip was getting into a wide open area of the map, or if you were in an intense firefight with more than one other person.
And a little bit of fame. Yeah, I know you push a lot of CDs because you sold out faster than the Black Eyed Peas. Oh!
GTA 5 is the first game to take an obvious performance hit by running settings this high. This is not surprising considering this game historically runs better on Intel and Nvidia hardware. In any case, it is still completely playable at these settings.
Ambitious man, he wanted the world in the palm of his hand. So right then he made the decision to make it his mission. He made some revisions to help him to his great vision. But nowadays he's wishing that he hadn't made those improvisations, cause he knows that he'll be getting what's coming to him. Yet he and the people, they flaunt their pride, while I laugh inside, cause I know the staff in no tea. And after another glance, it was plain to see the man was a prophet, a P-R-O-P-H-E-T. They looked at him and asked him, what does my future hold? The prophet said, your man, you've acted way too bold. You better run.
Resident Evil 2 is the first game I did have to dial a few settings back. Here we are reaching the limits of this CPU. When entering a large area and turning quickly is when I would notice obvious frame dips.
His front door. He trembled and he shook right down to his core. The words the man had said to him and chilled him to the bone. Now suddenly he realized that he wasn't alone. There stood two men cloaked to the toe. Nothing but the blades on the daggers would show. He dropped onto his knees, begging please, while hey, sliced away, hey.
Rocket League is my personal favorite esports title. This game will run on even the weakest potato systems. This PC has no problem running the max settings.
'Cause when the dagger hits the spinal cord, we'll make sure it burns. I said, poison in the bottle, brewing, boy, you've got a lot to learn. 'Cause when the dagger hits the spinal cord, we'll make sure it
Wolfenstein 2 uses the same game engine as Doom, so it runs just as flawless on the max preset.
breakfast, I found what appears to be a settings glitch. If I went higher than 4x on the MSAA setting, the performance would be cut in half on certain tracks.
She's gonna get it tonight. We gonna put up a fight. And she won't be the one to collect my soul. She's gonna get it tonight. 'Cause we gon' pop in the night. And she won't be the one to collect my soul.
Time for some conclusions. Overall, I'm very happy with how the system runs games at its current price point. However, if I had known I couldn't make use of the 75Hz monitor, I probably would have gone with something cheaper. The catch to that is finding a monitor with these specs at that price doesn't happen every day. I would recommend ditching the mining GPU and going with a standard RX 570 4GB card. These cards regularly go on sale for $129.99 and currently also come with 2 free games. Going that route to perfect this build would raise the cost of the tower to $378.71 and a total system cost of $553.10. Also, if you had another $50 to spend, you could go with a Ryzen 3 2200G instead of the Athlon, and that would likely get rid of any of the light stuttering that was encountered. But then that starts to defeat the spirit of this build. The idea was to put a good system together as cheaply as possible, but also have a good upgrade path. AMD has certainly proven since the release of the Zen architecture that they're willing to support multiple generations of CPUs. In my opinion, this gives them major points on the proposition of value by allowing you to look at both older and new CPUs when you decide to upgrade. I appreciate you joining me from my basement dungeon for this build. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please tell me how much I suck in the comments below. Thank you for watching and happy building.
Check it out!